guys sing this with me? You have come. You have come. We have found life everlasting. Now alive to know your freedom, never ending. Sing. You alone have made a way for us in your love. You are life from living in the light of the Savior, dancing in the arms of forever. I'm singing like I'm walking on water. You are life alive in me. Well, sing it out. Gray skies, living color, you have called us. In your light, light uncovered, the world to sing. You alone. You alone have made a way for us. In your love, hey, you are life from living in the light of my Savior, dancing in the arms of forever. I'm singing like I'm walking on water. You are life alive in me. I give my life to follow. 'Cause your love is all I want now. You are life, yeah. You are life alive in me. For all the world to find your love, for all the world to see that you are God, forever be lifted high. The one who holds the universe and every beating heart across the earth. Jesus be lifted high. You are life, I'm living in the light of. Come on! Dancing in the arms of forever, singing like I'm walking on water. You are life alive in me. I give my life to you. 'Cause your love is all I want now. You are life. You are life alive in me. Yeah. Are you guys excited to be here today? Awesome. I'm so excited to see you today. I'm glad you're here. I want you to go ahead and take a couple of seconds, get out of your seat, go find someone you haven't seen this morning, give them a high five, say, welcome to church. I raise a hallelujah in the presence of my enemy. I raise a hallelujah louder than the unbelief. I raise a hallelujah. My weapon is a melody. Come on. I raise a hallelujah. Heaven comes to fight for me. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna lift this up. Sing a little louder.
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 Let's sing a little louder.
Oh, sing a little louder.
Come on. Sing a little louder.
In the presence of my enemies.
Sing a little louder.
Louder than the unbelief.
Sing a little louder.
My weapon is a melody.
We're gonna sing a little louder.
Heaven comes to fight
Come
for
on.
me.
Sing a little louder.
In the presence of my enemies.
Sing a little louder.
Louder than my unbelief.
Sing a little louder.
My weapon is a melody.
Oh, we're gonna sing a little louder.
Heaven comes to fight for
Yeah,
me.
we're gonna sing a little louder.
I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Come on. Louder and louder. You're gonna hear my praises roar. Yes. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated. The King is alive. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive.
I raise a hallelujah. I raise a hallelujah. I raise a hallelujah. Oh, I raise a hallelujah.
Come on and sing this out with me. I'm gonna sing in the middle of the storm. Louder and louder, you're gonna hear my praises roar. Up from the ashes, hope will arise. Death is defeated, the King is alive.
Before I spoke a word, you were singing over me. You have been so, so good to me. Before I took a breath, you breathed your life in me. You have been so, so kind to me. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it. Still, you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh. on, church, let's sing this together. When I was your foe, still. When I was your foe, still your love fought for me. You have been so, so good to me. So good, oh. When I felt no worth, you paid it all for me. You did, oh. You have been so, so kind to me. Come on, lift it. Oh, the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away. Oh, the overwhelming, never, the reckless love of God. There's nothing holding you back. Oh, come on, sing this with me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't. Come on. There's no shadow you won't light up. Come on, every voice. When you're coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, you're coming after me. There's no shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, shadow you won't light up, mountain you won't climb up, coming after me. There's no wall you won't kick down, lie you won't tear down, coming after me. Oh, the overwhelming, come on. Oh, it chases me down, finds till I'm found, leaves the 99, and I couldn't earn it, and I don't deserve it, still you give yourself away, and all the over, it's the reckless love of
Worthy of every song we could ever sing, and worthy of all the praise we could ever bring, and worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you, oh, we live for you. Sing Jesus. Jesus, the name above every other name. And Jesus, the only one who could ever save. Worthy are you, and worthy of every breath we could ever breathe. We live for you, oh, we live for you, God. And holy, there is no one like you. There is none beside you. Open up my eyes in wonder.
shout of praise if you believe and you know that in Him there is a firm foundation. Guys, I am so excited that you guys have joined us in this beautiful and wonderful Sunday morning. Thank you so much for worshiping with us. Why don't you guys go ahead and take your seats?
Well, good morning, City Hope Church. Man, it's good to be in church with you guys this morning. My name is Vanessa, and I'm the Malvis campus pastor. Before we do anything else this morning, I want to share with you some exciting news that happened this week. We got to welcome our newest member to the Malvis campus family this week, Rhodes Eden Pinkston. I want you to meet Rhodes. She is the beautiful daughter of our worship leaders here at this campus, Pastor Jordan and Shannon. And isn't she just perfect? She's beautiful. Gosh, there's just nothing like family. And speaking of family today, I want to invite our church family. Can you just join me in helping me welcome all of those who are visiting for the first time today? Let's give a warm City Hope welcome. And if that's you today, we want the opportunity to connect with you. And if you haven't already stopped by one of our banners out in the lobby that say New Here, do that before you leave today. We have a gift for you waiting there, and I'll even be out there and would love to personally shake your hand and meet you then. Well, you know, 3 weeks ago, Pastor Trey initiated the 90-day tithe challenge, and I am still amazed and blown away that nearly 600 of you joined that challenge. Incredible, incredible. Come on, yeah, that's worth celebrating. Absolutely incredible. And you know, I'm convinced that God is writing beautiful stories in your families and will throughout this journey. And I'd love for you to share those with me. I'd love to celebrate with you and just hear all that God is doing in your life. And you can do that by simply emailing me to my church email address. It's vanessa@cityhope.cc. And I'd love to hear from you. Well, guys, if you've been out and about, Christmas decorations are up. There's red and green Starbucks cups out. You know, that only means that it is Christmas season. It's Christmas time. And that means that we are just 4 weeks away from Christmas at City Hope right here. And as you came in today, you should have gotten a bundle of invite cards. And I'm telling you, I want you to take those. Start now. Invite. Get people that are not involved in church. Find those people. You do life with them every single day. And get them here to hear a true message of hope this Christmas. Well, you know that Christmas at City Hope is not just for us, and we are to take that hope to outside of these four walls to those out in our community. And that is why we do Merry Christmas Gulf Coast. And so many of you have already begun to give to this above and beyond your tithe. And I want to challenge you. Maybe you haven't. That's okay. Ask God to just reveal to you what He would have you give. You know, $100 goes to provide Christmas gifts for one child. And we're believing this Christmas to touch the lives of 1,500 kids right here in our community. And I want to ask you to do something. I want you to go ahead and pull the tithe envelope out of the seat back in front of you. And let's just pray. Let's just pray over this entire season for God to just move on our hearts and on the hearts of others out there. Father, I thank you so much that you are our provider and ultimate provision. Father, we thank you that we get to have a small impact on kingdom. But God, we are believing today as we bring our tithes and give of our offerings, God, that you take it, you multiply it, just as you did with the fishes and the loaves, God, that you take what we're bringing to you, God, and you do what only you can do, immeasurably more than what we can do on our own. And I pray for every giver in this building today, God, that you bless them, God, that you have provision for them and their families. God, we give all of this back to you, and it's all your glory and for your honor. In Jesus' name, everybody said, amen. Well, guys, Merry Christmas Gulf Coast is just a few weeks away, and there's some information and details that you need to be a part of this event. So go ahead and turn your attention to the screen and check this out.
A couple weeks ago, we began talking about one of the biggest outreach events of the year, Merry Christmas Gulf Coast. We hope that each of you are planning to be a part of this weekend coming up on December the 7th. There are so many moving parts and pieces to pull off this huge event, including hundreds of volunteer opportunities at your campus, ways that you can specifically pray for the families that are going to be receiving gifts this year, and even a couple of different ways that you can give financially. Head over to our website at cityhope.cc/mcgc and make sure that December the 7th is marked off on your calendar. We know that generosity here at City Hope is huge, and there are dozens of families that take part in outreach opportunities all throughout the year. Whether or not that applies to you, this specific event is the absolute perfect time to get a taste of outreach and to experience the joy of giving back. Like most events here at City Hope, MCGC is a family-friendly event, and we would love for your kids to also be involved. We love our Kid City team and all that they do for our kids each and every week. So if you have kids that are 6 weeks old all the way up to 6th grade, make sure that they are involved in Kid City.
What's up, everybody? We are weeks away from Christmas at City Hope, and we are so excited. We're already getting in the Christmas spirit around here. We've got so many incredible things planned for you and your family. Hey, I know many of you probably already got your favorite Christmas playlist picked out. You've already been watching your favorite Christmas.
All right.
Bro, you can't be here.
What?
You can't be here.
What?
You can't do this.
Yes,
You
here.
can't do this.
Jacket.
The last
What?
time we did this,
No talking. Only acting.
Ladies and gents, this is the moment you've waited for. Bingo is back for Christmas just like before. Your ears will explode and the awesomeness coming forth. Take a deep breath, buckle your belt. So many lights, your face will melt. Don't fight it this season, it's taking over. Christmas time, it is here, lines around the corner. Gonna sing, gonna dance, let's be folly jolly. Sipping nog round the clock, cups are running over. Born the King, angels sing, heaven's host proclaiming. Little town Bethlehem in a tiny stable. Tiny Tim, Uncle Jim, your obnoxious neighbor. So I'll let you know and ask them if they wanna go.
The greatest story will come to life, and the runaways are hope for the night. Impossible comes true, so bring a friend or two. It's Christmas at City Hope. It's everything you ever want. It's anything you ever need, and it's here right in front of you. This is where you wanna be. This is where you wanna be. The greatest story will come to life. Impossible comes true, so bring a friend or two. It's Christmas at City Hope.
All right, what's up, everybody? How's everybody doing? Is anybody else ready for Christmas? Come on. Listen, we're going to have a lot of fun throughout the whole Christmas season this year, but Christmas at City Hope is going to be so much fun. So I think you got some invites today. Be sure to go ahead and start handing those out. Let's get the word out that we're going to have a lot of fun on December the 14th and 15th. Anyway, Christmas is coming. I'm excited. But this weekend, we're in part 3 of our series, House Rules. But before I jump into that, let me just say a couple quick things. One is to welcome our church family that is at every campus right now, those watching online and all the men at the Correctional Center campuses. Malbus, do me a favor, put your hands together and help me welcome our church family. It's great having you guys with us. All over the place. So good to have you guys with us. The second thing that I want to mention is that next weekend we'll be wrapping this series up, be part 4 of it, and I want to do something a little bit different, a little bit special. And I'm going to take some questions, and throughout the next weekend, we're going to answer some of those questions. So if you will, pull out your phone and jot down this number. This is my personal cell phone number. No, it's not. Just kidding. But you can text this number a question that you may have about family, parenting, things like that, especially relating to the topics that we've been covering when it comes to discipleship or communication, different things like that. So text us here, and I'm hoping, and you can pray with me about this, but I'm hoping and praying that next weekend I will be joined by my beautiful and amazing wife to help me answer some of these questions. So if you'd like to see my wife help me next weekend and answer these questions, go ahead and put your hands together and let her know how special that would be. She had no idea I was going to say that until this moment, so surprised. No, I'm just kidding. She knew. But so next weekend is going to be a really, really special weekend, so I want to make sure you're here, you're a part of it, but definitely send in your questions so that we can really talk about what's most important to you guys. Just whatever the bigger questions are, the most frequent questions, that's probably the ones that we'll tackle. But this weekend, we're going to talk about rule number 3. And rule number 3 of our house rules, our guiding principles, values, just as far as making our home better, because if our home's better, our life is better, right? Like everything just kind of comes out of our home life. And really, you cannot build a great home by accident. That's what we're talking about. You can't do it by accident. It's got to be intentional. So we've covered a couple different rules. Today, rule number 3 is this. It's that we should remember yesterday, but live for tomorrow. Rule number 3 is that we should remember yesterday, but we should live for tomorrow. Because all of our homes right now is literally where we are in our current season and stage of life. That is our home, right? For some, it looks different for all of us. Whatever season or stage you're in, it looks a little bit different. For some, you just went to college and you're living in an apartment or a dorm for the very first time by yourself or with roommates. Okay, that's your home. That's your new home life, your new home place. You're kind of starting out on your own, or maybe you're out of college and maybe you're either just got married or looking to get married, and you're looking at creating a new home, or you are creating a new home, or maybe you started having kids and you're young and you're new at this whole kid thing, or maybe you got a whole bunch of kids. You got kids running out everywhere, just kids everywhere, or maybe you're in the other end of that and you're kind of sending them out the door. Praise the Lord. You're like, let's go to college. Come on, let's get, and you're in that empty nester zone, and it's wonderful, and it's weird, and it's different, and you don't even know. But maybe that's your home right now, or maybe you're full-on grandparent mode, right? And that's your home culture right now, is you are a full-on grandparent, which, from what I understand, is just blissful and amazing. Is that right, grandparents? Right? It's absolutely amazing. We're all shooting for that one day. Here we go, right? But whatever home looks like for you right now, like that's your home. However, where you were is also your home, your past home, right? The home that you grew up in is also your home. It's also attached and connected to you right now, because our homes profoundly shape us the way we think, the way we act, the way we live, our views, our hurts, our pains, the way we see the world, the way we see God, the way we see life, the way we see sex, the way we see money, the way we see race, the way we see everything. Like it's all shaped through our home of the past. And what we do is we take our culture, our home culture from the past, and we bring it into the present. Every one of us do this. We don't even realize it. It's invisible. We have no idea, but we do. We bring it into the present, and then inevitably what happens is it gets carried into the future. And the home of our past becomes our present, and eventually it will shade or shape the future home that your kids are one day going to have. Right? Because home is this idea of legacy, and it's not an isolated thing. It carries from one generation to the next, and it's intended to do that. It's meant to do that. Right, look at what this one author and pastor, counselor, he said this. His name's Pete Scazzaro. He said, the blessings and sins of our families going back 2 to 3 generations profoundly impact who we are today. They profoundly impact who we are today. We are carrying them with us even when we don't know it. So whenever we got married, we had 2 home cultures, 2 past ideas of home and views of the world colliding under one roof. And some of us felt that on day one, right? The moment you got married, you walked into that house or whatever the situation was, and immediately you realized, oh, you were brought up differently than me. right? Like the home you came out of was very different than my home. Your beliefs, your views, the way you see the world is very different than the way that I see the world. And over the next few years, for some, it gets really, really hard, right? Marriage gets tough, and it's always this battle of trying to figure out this new home. For others, it gets brushed underneath the rug, and it comes out 20 or 30 years later, right? Whatever the situation is, we all run up against that. I know Becky and I did, right out of the gate. I mean, on our honeymoon, we started experiencing some of these things. Right? I mean, immediately, because she is very much just a free spirit. Just this beautiful, wonderful free spirit. And basically what that means, and the way it impacts me the most, is that she has a very interesting relationship with time. A relationship with time that's very different than my relationship with time. And I realized this pretty early on, that her relationship with time is very conceptual. It's an idea. Sometimes it's a great idea. Other times it really isn't convenient right now, right? But for me, time is a constraint that's put on the world for a reason, right? And so we immediately collided in the idea of what time is supposed to look like, right? She brings more peace in her approach. I bring more anxiety and stress in my approach because now, right? And I become a monster when we're 5 minutes late. And she's like, "What's wrong, babe? Life is wonderful," right? Like, it's just two things colliding. I just created a civil war. I know, like, families are like, that's you, right? Because we all do that. We all enter this home with different ideas. Like another one, maybe even a little bit more serious, is we grew up in very different homes. She grew up and she was raised by a single mom. She experienced several men, stepdads, dad coming and going. Dad left really early on. So her idea of home is very different than my idea of home. My parents have been married over 45 years, 46 years, right? I mean, in ministry, and I mean, everything is completely different. There's a whole different approach to home and what that looks like. But 17 years ago, we collided in one house. And her home of the past and my home of the past went wham, right? And so we all have to deal with that and sort through that. And that's something that we all get to do. We all have to do that. One of the ways that shows up for us is the idea of moving. Anytime we bring up moving, it creates a different emotion in her than it does for me. Because the home life she grew up in, there wasn't a lot of money. Her mom worked multiple jobs, trying to make ends meet. So moving for her was out of necessity because there wasn't enough money, or there was a security or safety problem, or something bad happened. There was a man, something, there was a problem. And so moving was more of a sense of hurt and pain and difficulty. For me, it's like, let's go find a new house. Like, that's it. Like, let's just go get a new house, right? So even when the simple things, home of the past, colliding with the home of the culture, the current, is something that we have to learn how to work through and walk through so that we don't drag these things into the future, right? Because whatever those things are, good or bad, we're going to take them into the future. It's inevitable. Another thing Pete Scazzaro said, he said that discipleship requires putting off the sinful patterns of our family of origin and relearning how to do life God's way in God's family. Releasing, putting away all of those things of the past, all those hurtful things, those things that affect us in negative ways. Now, there are some good things that we're going to carry from generation to generation to generation. And I hope that we are in the business here of creating new good things. Right, that we're carrying on good things, but a lot of us are in the pattern of bad things. There are some hand-me-downs that should not be handed down. You know what I'm saying? Like when you get to that third or fourth kid and that pair of pajamas that you've been handing down just has holes all in it and it's raggedy, and you're like, I don't care, kid. You're going to wear those things, right? Right? There are some things that in our home life we need to stop. We need to be able to see it. And again, like I said a minute ago, a lot of these things are invisible to us. We don't even know it. It's just like breathing air. It's a part of our thought life, our culture, our view, our perspective, because we were raised in that, and now it's second nature. It's part of it. But they're harmful. There's some harmful things there that we need to look at and address. And basically what this is that I'm talking about, honestly, it's growth. It's freedom. Because a lot of us are bound to things from the past that we don't even realize we're bound to. There's a growing in freedom that needs to happen in every single one of us so that we ultimately can have the family that God wants us to have, but so that we can have an impact on the world. Because our ability to impact the world and make a difference is directly connected to our level of freedom. It's directly connected, and that difference that we're first and foremost trying to make is in our own home with our own kids. But some of us as adults or young singles all the way to grandparents, we still haven't dealt with the past that we're dragging into the current, into the present, so that we can have the right kind of future home. And it's painful, and it hurts, and it's difficult, but it's something that has to be worked up. It has to be dug through, the history, the hidden parts, the things that we don't want to talk about, the generational patterns and sins and all these things that we go, well, yeah, we know grandpa was like that. Well, actually, you know what? Dad was like that too. You know what? I have some tendencies like that. At some point, we have to say, not anymore. This is not going to continue and carry on into the next generation. Right? I like to think of spiritual growth and freedom. There's a parable in Mark 4 where Jesus is talking about 4 different soils. And he says that the seed of faith, the way it interacts with these 4 different soils, represents different people. To me, I think that a lot of Christians in America are a lot like the second soil type. Jesus labels it the rocky soil. It's hard, it's difficult. The seed doesn't go very deep. It sprouts quickly, but there's never any fruit, and it dies very quickly. You know why? Because the seed of faith didn't go deep enough. Because the seed of faith didn't get into the history and the baggage and the pain and all the stuff that's deep within us. It never got to that point. It just sat on the surface. I prayed a prayer. I come to church a couple times a month. I sing all the songs. Isn't that enough? No. Because the seed of the gospel of faith, it has to get deep into our lives. It has to permeate all that we are so that we can truly be a new creation, so that we can live the kind of life that God wants us to live, ultimately, so that we can raise the kind of kids that he wants us to raise, so that we can send them out into the world to be world changers. But it starts in my home. It starts in our home. And for a lot of us, it starts with the past. It starts with just getting rid of the past. Seeing it, realizing it, and stopping it there, because you can't lead your kids, you can't lead them someplace that you haven't already gone yourself. It's impossible. You can't get them to that place that we all want our kids, man. We don't want our kids bound, addicted, hurt, isolated. We don't want our kids dealing with some of the junk that we went through. If we don't deal with it, then they will never be able to deal with it, learn how to deal with it. We'll never be able to lead them to freedom if we don't have freedom. We have to start there. There's a story in the Old Testament that I'm going to take a few minutes and try to explain this story because it's a long, epic saga of the Old Testament, a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away kind of stuff. It actually takes place over the bulk of the book of Genesis, and it's a character named Abraham that most of us know about. Most of us are very familiar with Abraham. He was literally chosen by God to begin his people, to begin this nation of Israel, and to start this whole journey. He's the patriarch of our faith. But one thing I love about the Bible is that it's not full of perfect people. It's not. God used imperfect people in powerful ways because they were willing and open and humble. God used them. And when we think of a guy like Abraham, this patriarch, this amazing character in the Bible, and we think of him as this incredible, incredible guy, but he had flaws. He had deep, deep flaws, and that's what I want us to look at, because as soon as in Genesis 12, God literally tells him, hey, go and begin this new thing. Leave your current home culture, leave your current life, leave the current land that you're in, leave mom and dad, leave this whole thing, and go and begin something brand new in Genesis 12. And this is the part we celebrate. God says, I'm going to bless you. I'm going to bless your home. I'm going to bless your descendants. This is going to be amazing. Abraham sets off in just a few verses. One of 2 incidences happen. It blows my mind that God and the writers of the Bible include these stories because they're important for us to see these stories. They're details, but they're important. Within a few verses of this amazing epic moment, Abraham says yes. His name was Abram at that time. Abram says yes. God says go. Abram says yes, and he goes. He actually lands, first and foremost, he lands in the land of Canaan, which we later know as the Promised Land. It's interesting to me that hundreds of years before Moses and Joshua and the Promised Land thing that we know, Abram actually goes to the Promised Land because God said go. He gets there. Within just a few short years, months or years, we read that there is a famine in the land. So Abram packs up his entire caravan, his crew, his servants, his livestock, his family. There's a whole bunch of them, and they all head south to Egypt. They go into the capital city, and Abram is scared for his own safety and his own well-being. And look at what he says to his wife, Sarai. Genesis 12, as he was approaching the border of Egypt, Abram said to his wife Sarai, "Look, you are a very beautiful woman. When the Egyptians see you, they will say, 'This is his wife, let's kill him, then we can have her.' So please tell them that you are my sister. Then they will spare my life and treat me well because of their interest in you." And this is exactly what they do. They go into this new city, Pharaoh, all the Egyptian leaders, they say this. They say, "This is my sister," and exactly what he thought was going to happen, happened. Pharaoh blessed him, gave him more servants and more blessings. And you brought this beautiful sister of yours to me. It's wonderful. He marries her. It's this crazy thing that happens. And before he has a chance to sleep with her, God intervenes. Abram thought he got away with this whole deal. It's cooking. Things are working out for him. He's preserving his life. He's up against a rock and a hard place, and he's winning at this point. He's being blessed, crazy as it is. And God says, "Nope, this cannot happen. This will not happen." And look at what happens just a few verses later. But the Lord sent terrible plagues upon Pharaoh and his household because of Sarai, Abram's wife. So Pharaoh summoned Abram and accused him sharply. "What have you done to me?" he demanded. "Why didn't you tell me that she was your wife? Why did you say she is my sister and allow me to take her as my wife? Now then, here is your wife. Take her and get out of here." Abram made a terrible mistake. We're all in the same camp. Hopefully it's not the same mistake, but we've all made mistakes, right? We've all done stupid things. Surely he learned from this. Surely he changed his ways. Surely he realized, well, that was stupid. I should not have done that. Let me change and do something different. But what's crazy is just a couple of chapters later, he does the exact same thing again. This time he's in the land of Canaan. He's going into a new city. Same exact thing. He goes before the king and he says, "This is my sister." The king blesses him because that he is her brother. The same exact thing unfolds one more time. This is what the king says to him in this chapter, in chapter 20. "But that night God came to King Abimelech in a dream and told him that you are a dead man. For that woman that you have taken is already married, but Abimelech had not slept with her yet. So he said, 'Lord, will you destroy an innocent nation? Didn't Abraham tell me that she is my sister?' And she herself said, 'Yes, he is my brother.' I acted in complete innocence. My hands are clean." And in the dream, God responded, "Yes, I know you are innocent. That's why I'm keeping you from sinning against me and why I did not let you touch her." Again, God intervenes. God fixes the situation. He fixes the problem. He sends them on their way. Right? Maybe at this point, Abraham has learned his lesson, but the problem is that this has created a pattern in the family. There's a generational pattern that begins to emerge that you can see over this entire family line. Here's Abraham, an amazing man of God with a massive flaw that isn't isolated to one moment, but it becomes two moments, and it ends up becoming a pattern because we see this happen in his son, Isaac, who is his favorite son. We see this exact same thing begin to unfold as Isaac is ironically in the same city as Abraham was in this last story. In the same city, he does the exact same thing. Look at this. So Isaac stayed in Gerar, when the men who lived there asked Isaac about his wife Rebekah, he said, "She is my sister." Why? Because he was afraid to say, "She is my wife." He thought, they will kill me to get to her because she is so beautiful. Again, he's lying and deceiving just like his dad did. Why? To preserve himself, to save himself, to help himself. A pattern is emerging. Something is developing. Something is beginning from generation to generation to generation. But it doesn't stop with Isaac. It doesn't stop with him. It moves on to the next generation. Esau and Jacob were the two sons of Isaac. Esau was the older one, so his custom in that time, he would be the one that would receive the birthright. He would become, the next head of the family. Think Godfather. Like, he would be the next head of the family, the Don Corleone. Like, he would be that guy over the family. So God was Isaac was going to bless him with the inheritance and the blessing and the birthright, and it was going to be this amazing moment. So Isaac says to his son, Esau, he says, go into the field, kill my favorite animal, make my favorite meal, come back, let me eat that meal, and then I will bless you. I will give you the birthright. I will give you your rightful inheritance. So while Esau goes and does exactly what his father told him to do, Jacob, the younger brother, and mom, Rebekah, who had been sinned against in the last story, right, they conspire against Esau and Isaac. So what they do is they want Jacob to get the blessing. They want Jacob to get the inheritance. He's a younger son. He's not supposed to. This is not the order of things. So what they do is they go kill something quickly that's nearby, a goat, that's not what dad wanted. They're just trying to get something quick. And then they disguise Jacob to look like Esau because dad's going blind. He has bad eyesight. He can barely hear. So they begin to disguise him to look like Esau, which meant that he's a very rough kind of guy, very manly guy. So they actually took the fur of the goat and actually put it on his arms and his face so that when Isaac would touch him, it would feel like he was Esau. Like, they went all in on this scheme. Like, it wasn't just this simple little white lie. Like, they're going all in. Dad is literally on his deathbed, handing over his inheritance, his birthright, the blessing of this family, the line of the family, this amazing tradition. And here's Jacob and Rebekah scheming to get a hold of that birthright. So he takes the stew, his favorite meal. He goes in. He's all covered in goat hair. He stinks like a goat or like he's been hunting or whatever, trying his best to deceive dad. And look at what happens. So Jacob took the food to his father. My father, he said, yes, my son, Isaac answered. Who are you, Esau or Jacob? And Jacob replied, it's Esau, your firstborn son. I've done as you told me. Here is the wild game. Now sit up and eat so that you can give me your blessing. Isaac asked him, how did you find this so quickly, my son? The Lord your God put it in my path, Jacob replied. Then Isaac said to Jacob, come closer so that I can touch you and make sure that you are really Esau. And then he just hammers it home in verse 24. But are you really my son Esau? He asked. Yes, I am, Jacob replied. This pattern of deception was moving from generation to generation. It's picking up steam. There's a dying dad on his deathbed. And the deception is running through this family line, through this generation after generation after generation. And I wish it stopped there, but it doesn't. It doesn't. We're 3 generations in at this point. And it goes to the next generation because Jacob, whose name means deceiver, by the way, Jacob had 12 sons. 12 sons. And the older 10 brothers hated their younger brother, Joseph. Hated him. To the point that they tried to kill him, chickened out on killing him, and decided to sell him into slavery to Egypt. Then they went home to dad, Jacob, and they said, your son has been eaten by a wild animal. And for the next 20-something years, Joseph is gone, and they are living in this lie that they had told their dad. And their dad is grieving their brother. This thing just continued generation after generation after generation. It just continued to snowball. And here's the thing. It's not just generational sin. I know I'm telling you a story about specific sin, but it's not just sin because there are 2 other patterns in this story that emerge time and time again. One of them is that every single generation had a favorite son. Every generation had a favorite son, and every single generation had a relational rift between brothers, and only a couple of them were ever reconciled. There was a relational rift so great that brothers literally were in war against brothers. Like just generally, every single step, 4 generations down, you see the same thing repeated over and over and over again. Now, Abraham didn't intend to do this. Abraham didn't mean to hurt his sons and his grandchildren and his great-grandchildren and his great-grandchildren. He didn't set out hundreds of years earlier to say, you know what, one day I'm going to mess this whole thing up. No. He created a pattern of mistakes that led into a family of mistakes. I wonder how many of us are living in those things right now. Past bitterness and hurts or views, ideals about life and people that are just carried from generation to generation, and we don't even stop to look and go, man, I got to do something about that. I don't want that being carried on. I don't want that to go to the next step. I want it done here. Because here's the positive side of this. I know you need some positive. Here's the positive side of this, right? That what is true about negative cycles is equally true about positive cycles. That when there are good things, positive, godly things in one generation, they will be carried to the next generation. They will move forward to the next generation. But someone has to come along and say, enough is enough. This is going to stop. And what I love about this story is Joseph was that man. Joseph was the man that said, this is not going to carry on in my family line anymore. Because he was the one that felt the effect of the deception. And here's Joseph, who went through slavery, who went through the things we've talked about recently, prison and all these crazy things, and yet he never lied. He was a man of integrity. He was a man of honesty. He never lied, even though a lie probably would have gotten him out of some trouble. But he refused to give in to the generational pattern that had been set up in his family. He refused. He said, absolutely not. As a matter of fact, after his dad Jacob died, as soon as his dad Jacob died, they're all in Egypt now. Joseph has been promoted to the second most powerful person in all of Egypt. God had promoted him. He was a man of honor and integrity and just incredible, incredible man. His dad Jacob died. He brought all of his family back to Egypt to him. He blessed them. He poured out God's blessings on them. They received from him. And the moment Jacob died, they got a little scared. Because now that dad's gone, who's going to protect us? The 10 that sold him into slavery, the 10 that did all of this. Who's going to protect us? And so look at what they do. So as soon as dad dies, they send Joseph a letter because they're scared. They send Joseph a letter, and look at what it says in Genesis 50. So they sent this message to Joseph. Before your father died, he instructed us to say to you, please forgive your brothers for the great wrong that they did to you, for their sin in treating you so cruelly. Number one, he'd already forgiven them. Number two, this is a lie. Can you believe it? At the end of their story, they're still repeating the pattern of granddad back in the day. That even though they've already been forgiven and Joseph has poured out all this blessing on them, they're still resorting back to the same old pattern of, hey, dad told us to tell you. No, he didn't. And in that moment, Joseph makes a bold statement, a statement filled with grace and humility that makes it very, very clear that his pattern from here on forward will not look like the pattern that they all grew up in. He demonstrated a pattern of forgiveness and humility. Look at what he says. He responds to his brothers. He says, don't be afraid of me. Am I God that I can punish you? Listen, you intended to harm me, but God intended it all for good. He brought me to this position so that I could save the lives of many people. No, don't be afraid. I will continue to take care of you and your children. So he reassured them by speaking kindly to them. It goes on and just more and more of this grace and humility that he showed his brothers. He literally was saying, this is not going to continue with me anymore. We are not going to be this kind of family. This is not going to go to my sons. It stops here. The amazing thing about Joseph's story is Joseph is a type, he's a picture, he's a foreshadowing of Jesus Christ. And just like Joseph said, nope, it's done. This will not pass on. This will not carry on in my family. It's the same exact thing that Jesus Christ did for you and I. Is he broke the pattern of sin and shame and guilt. He broke those things off if we will just accept him and accept that he broke it. It's exactly what happened right here in Joseph's story. He said, no, not anymore. I'm going to change. This whole trajectory is going to be completely different. I'm going to change this pattern. In other words, this is what we're saying. We're saying don't let the baggage of your past sabotage the potential of your future. Don't let all this generational stuff, cycles, patterns, sin, mindsets plague and sabotage the current family that God is trying to build within your four walls. So that the future family that is going to come out of your house has a stronger foundation than you had when you began building your house. Right? And we have the power to do that. Jesus Christ has already broken it, but here's the thing. When it comes to that growth that we were talking about early on, that's on us. That's on us, because what we end up thinking is that, oh, Jesus saved me. He came to the cross. He rose from the dead. Boom, the curse is broken. Woohoo, let's go live a new life. Everything's different now. It is different, yes. But salvation has to be worked through you. There's some digging, there's some excavation, there's some things that have to happen to get to all these points of, so that Jesus can get to all of these places. A couple of weeks ago, I have no idea why she did this, but my wife asked me to bake like a banana bread. It was a box. It was super easy. It wasn't complicated. But before this, I'd literally done cereal, and I could order a pizza. I think that was about it. I'm very limited on my cooking ability, but she asked me to bake or do this little box banana bread. Never done something like that before. I mean, maybe early on, but I can't even remember. And I'm putting all the ingredients in the bowl, and I'm reading line by line, because I do not want to mess this thing up. I'm reading line by line. I put all the ingredients in the bowl, crack the eggs on top, and it hits me that as I'm about to begin mixing this, it hits me that so many of us in the faith are like that. We've got this mound of mess. I mean, why do you put some of the things you put in there, right? I mean, there's a dash of this and a hit of that and a little bit of this. And it's like, what is all this stuff? It's just a pile of mush. And then we cracked this egg on top of it, and I thought, what if I were to just put that in the oven? What would happen? Right? What would come out of the oven? Just this mushy thing with fried eggs on top of it, right? Nothing good comes from that whatsoever. But what made a cake batter is when I took the eggs and I mixed them throughout the batter. So where every bit of that mess, the batter, the stuff, was literally touching that egg. Everything was all connected. Literally, this is the way our salvation works. It's salvation, and then at some point it has to get to the deepest parts of us so that it and Jesus and the gospel permeates our very being. Everything, our history, our now, our future, our problems, like he has to get into all of us. But what we do is we settle for the egg on top. We settled for just cracking the egg. We prayed the prayer. Woohoo! We baked the cake. No, you didn't. You may have created more problems in the future because you're actually not allowing the gospel of Jesus Christ to get into every part of you, which is hard, it's difficult, it hurts, it's painful, drudging up some things and looking at your life and realizing that addiction patterns and divorce patterns and all these emotional issues that we're dealing with as a culture, all these things go back years. It's not brand new, guys. It's not brand new. Most of us learned it from somewhere. We're picking it up somehow. There's some cultural home things that we've got to break off of the past so that we can begin new today. So that we can have the kind of home and family that God wants us to have. But it begins with awareness, because you cannot change what you're unaware of. You can't change what you're unaware of. And a lot of us just keep brushing it underneath the rug, and we don't want to deal with it. I know people that have issues, emotional issues, just opening up, talking to their spouse, and you ask them why, and you start digging into it, and you start asking them about their previous family, and they'll say something like this: well, dad was just locked up, he never talked about anything, and mom was all emotions, but she always was treated badly when she had all those emotions. So what did I learn? I learned how to just shut up, just be quiet. Right? Or maybe there's a family that's isolated. Everybody's an enemy, everybody's a problem, and it's isolation, and now you have a hard time opening up to community. Because there's a pattern in your life that someone else is out to get you. And what are they going to get? What do they want to, they're trying to get close to me for something. I don't know. But there are patterns in our life, or maybe it has to do with race and the way you see another race. Or maybe it has to do with sex or gender roles in the home. Maybe it has to do with politics. Maybe it has to do with spirituality and God. I don't know, but there are things that have carried on. It's not just sin. It's not just blatant sin like lying. No, for all of us, there are things that we grew up in that were like air that we were breathing. We couldn't even pinpoint it. But man, they're affecting you now. They're affecting your children. They're going to affect their children. And I believe we're supposed to be the Josephs that just say, no, this is going to stop here. This is going to stop here because God sent his family to this earth to save your family. He sent Jesus Christ to this earth to break the hold that sin has over you, the curse of death and shame and guilt. God sent his one and only Son to this planet for us, for your family, for your kids, for the home that you're in right now, to break all of that stuff. Do you even see it and realize it? And then what are you going to do to begin walking in freedom? There's a couple of tools or a couple of things to end with today. And one of them is this. It's a tool that I want to give you. You know, the last couple of weeks I've been making a big deal about take-home questions. And you know, I kind of said we're going to do a take-home question every week. This week we're not. I changed my mind. We're actually doing 10. I'm doubling down. Because here's the thing. I think a lot of the unhealth of our families has to do with our past families. That we're unwilling to dig up and to allow God to permeate those places. Allow God to bring freedom to those places. Allow Jesus to intersect with the deepest and the darkest and the hidden places. And this is a very simple tool. And it's not going to get you all the way, but my hope is it will begin a conversation. This is different. This isn't necessarily something that you want to sit around with the little kids, maybe the older kids, but this is something just to unpack. Couples, grandparents, singles. If you're in a small group, if you're single and you're in a small group, this could be worth unpacking. If you're engaged, by all means, walk through this, because everybody got some ugly. Let's go ahead and air it all out on the front end, right? Like, it's just unpacking, digging. Let's look and see generational patterns and things. And it's questions like this, and you're going to get it on the way out today at every campus, but it's questions like this. Describe your mom in 3 words. Describe your dad in 3 words. Last service, somebody went, ooh. Exactly. How was conflict or anger handled in your home? What was considered success in your family of origin? What was considered success? How did race shape you and your family? How would you describe the relationships among family members? Were there any heroes or villains in your family, and why were they singled out in that way? What generational patterns or themes do you recognize? Do you see addictions, affairs, abuse, divorce, mental illness, abortions, children out of wedlock, et cetera, and et cetera? Right? Questions just to force you to look deep and unpack it with your significant other. Or maybe a counselor. And then the other thing I want to leave you is this. Is that, go ahead and throw that next slide up there. Is that we all need a community that we can get real with. Because these are the kind of things that we need to walk into a group of people that love us and we can unpack with them. Because here's what I believe about growth. Here's what I believe about us becoming healthy is it's not going to happen alone. Discipleship is relational. Discipleship is relational. This tool that I'm giving you is relational. It's not just meant for you in a notebook. It's meant for you and someone, your spouse. Maybe if you're engaged, a small group if you're single. Maybe your small group if you're married and you're just like, man, we're battling. I don't know. It's endless. But it's a tool to help you begin that. But I want you to understand that we all need a community to get real with, because you will not grow spiritually without that. You can grow in knowledge, you can grow in expertise, you can grow in theology, you can grow in all that kind of stuff, but information will not transform your life. And what community does is it helps Jesus Christ to permeate your very being. Is it takes these ideas and the information and the theology and the Bible and all this stuff, and it helps it get inside you so that you can actually be transformed. You will not grow. We will not grow unless we are in a small group or we're with a group of people that truly love us and care for us so much that they're not going to let us stay there. They're not going to let us stay there. They're going to help us grow and become more and more like God. So take this tool on the way out today and just begin to unpack it. Begin to open up and then take it into a small group or get into a small group. And let's get real with one another. Jesus, we thank you for being here in this place with us right now. Lord, I know today's a heavier day. It's digging up some stuff that we don't want to dig up. And I just pray right now for peace, for just a peace in our hearts to know that it's okay. God, that we can go there. Because what you want is you want to save all of us. You want to transform our entire being. You want to permeate all that we are. You want to affect every single part of us. And I pray that today we will know that, feel that, and that, God, we will move towards you in that. God, that we will not be shy or timid or afraid or scared or try to run from this, but God, that we will step into it boldly because we want to know you, because we want to be free. And I believe you want us to be free. In Jesus' name, just keep your head bowed and your eyes closed for just a second. I know and I believe in my heart that there are people here today that want to meet Jesus Christ, that want to invite him into your life and into your story right now, to begin changing you, to begin changing your legacy, to begin changing your life. And I just want to give you an opportunity. If that's you, just raise your hand right now. Every campus, just raise your hand. I see a few hands already right here. Every campus, just raise your hand up. Here's what we're going to do, church family. Those of you with your hands up, I want you to pray this prayer, but church, we're all going to pray it. But if your hand is up right now, pray this from the bottom of your heart. Let's pray. Jesus, forgive me of all of my sin, all of my shame. Take it all away from me. I give you my life. I give you my heart. Jesus, I want to know you. And I want to experience new life in you. Jesus, I give you all that I am. In your holy name I pray. Amen. Amen. Let's put our hands together. There were hands all over the room. Thank God for that. Love you guys.